Be silent now, my friend. Let the world talk while you build. Hush the cries, hush the noise. Let the silence be your shield. You know what's funny? People out there, they never shut up. They think noise makes them strong. Like if they scream loud enough, the world's gonna listen. But the world doesn't listen to noise. It listens to power. And power, my friend, doesn't shout. Power whispers. Power stays quiet, watches, waits, and then strikes when no one's ready. Silence, oh. Silence is the sharpest weapon you'll ever hold. But you're too busy spilling your soul, begging for people to understand. They won't. They never will. Let me explain it the way life explained it to me. Harsh, raw, no sweet little lies to keep you comfortable. Every time you open your mouth to defend yourself, to explain, to convince, you hand them a piece of your control. You think they'll respect you for being honest? No. They'll use it. They'll twist it. They'll laugh at it in their rooms when you're not around. You see, people don't value your words. They value your silence because silence makes them wonder. Silence makes them restless. Silence makes them choke on their own thoughts. Let me tell you something dark. People fear what they can't predict. And nothing is more unpredictable than a silent man. When you stop reacting, when you stop justifying, when you let their insults, their doubts, their betrayals hang in the air without giving them the satisfaction of your voice, that's when they panic. That's when the mask slips and they realize they never had control over you. You see, anger can be measured, tears can be mocked, laughter can be ignored. But silence is a mirror. It forces them to face themselves. And believe me, most people hate what they see. You think staying silent makes you weak, like you're holding back too much. But silence is not weakness. It's discipline. It's patience. It's the art of letting the world burn itself out while you're planning your next move. Look at the ones who destroyed you, who disrespected you. Who thought you'd stay small forever? Do they deserve your explanations? Do they deserve your pain spelled out in letters and words they'll never understand? No, no, no. They deserve silence, because silence is not absence. It's a storm gathering. Imagine this. You disappear from their noise. No replies, no arguments, no desperate. Wait, let me explain. Nothing. And then months later, they see you standing taller, stronger, sharper. They realize your silence wasn't emptiness. It was growth. It was pain sculpting you into something they can't even reach anymore, and it'll eat them alive. Trust me. Because people don't regret losing those who cry out loud. They regret losing the ones who vanish in silence only to return unrecognizable, untouchable. Silence is heavy. Yes, it feels like it's crushing your chest, like you're swallowing 1,000 unsaid words every day. But that weight, that's your training. That's the gym for your soul. That's the resistance shaping you into a version of yourself that no betrayal, no heartbreak, no failure can break. You'll walk into rooms and your silence will scream louder than their words ever could. You'll sit at tables and your calmness will suffocate their fake laughter. You'll look at them and your eyes will say what your lips don't need to. Be silent. Let them wonder. Let them assume. Let them choke on the stories they invent about you. Because one day when you finally decide to speak again, your words won't be explanations. They'll be declarations. They won't be defenses. They'll be commands. And by then, your silence will have already done the damage. You know, kid, silence, it's not just about keeping your mouth shut. It's about control. It's about strangling the chaos before it strangles you. Everyone out there wants you to react. They thrive on it like parasites feeding on your emotions. You shout, they smile. You beg, they grin. You cry, oh, they laugh behind closed doors. But when you don't give them anything, when you lock yourself in silence, they starve. That's the beauty of it. Silence starves your enemies. And I don't mean enemies in the comic book sense. No, I mean the ones who sit across from you at dinner. The ones you trusted. The ones who said, I'll never leave and left anyway. Those smiling little betrayers who thought your pain was entertainment. They want a show. Don't give them one. Be silent. Let their curiosity eat them alive while you sharpen your blades in the dark. People don't understand what silence really costs. It's not easy. It feels like swallowing knives every damn day, holding in everything you want to scream. It feels like suffocating in your own head, replaying every betrayal, every loss, every stupid mistake that made you bleed. But that pain, that's the weightlifting of your soul. You push against it day after day, and it forges something in you. Something louder than any scream. Pain and silence transforms you. Think of a seed underground. Nobody sees it. Nobody hears it. Nobody claps for it. It's alone in the dark, crushed under dirt. But one day, it breaks through concrete. That's you. That's what silence does. It buries you, but it also builds you into something unstoppable. Let me give you an example. You ever notice how the strongest fighters never talk before the fight? They don't stand there bragging, promising what they'll do. They look into their opponent's eyes and they let silence do the talking, because silence says, I don't need to prove myself with words. You'll feel it. And when the punches come, the silence before it makes the impact 10 times heavier. Same with life. You don't need to tell them you'll rise again. Don't post quotes online about how you'll be stronger. Don't call them to explain how much you've grown. Let them see it when it's too late. Let them choke on the realization. That's the punch. Silence loads the gun, and your success pulls the trigger. But let's get darker. Silence also teaches you about people. When you stop explaining yourself, watch who stays and who leaves. Those who only loved your voice, your constant reassurance, your desperate need to keep them close, they'll vanish, because silence exposes them. They didn't love you. They loved the version of you that entertained them, that begged for them, that filled their empty little egos. When you go silent, when you give them nothing, they panic. And panic reveals truth. Some will try harder to keep you. Some will fade away. And you'll learn the hardest lesson of all. Most of them were never real to begin with. You want to win? Stop feeding people with your words. Let them sit with their own guilt, their own doubts, their own emptiness. Don't save them from it. Don't fix their image of you. Don't argue. Don't beg. Don't prove. Just vanish into silence and build. Build when nobody's clapping. Work when nobody believes. Heal when nobody notices. Because when you return, you won't even need words. Your presence will be enough, and there's just background noise. Silence is survival. Look at wolves. They hunt in silence. Look at assassins. They move in silence. Look at storms. Before they destroy everything in sight, they arrive in silence. That's the pattern of power, my friend. The ones who talk too much, they burn out before the fight even begins. The ones who stay quiet, they own the aftermath. And that's what I want you to understand. Your silence is not weakness. It's the calm before the storm. And when your storm comes, oh, they wish they'd never underestimated you. Silence, kid. Silence is like a blade. You don't wave it around in the streets. You don't show it off to every stranger you meet. No, you keep it tucked, hidden, sharp, waiting. The moment you reveal it, the moment you use it, it cuts deeper than anything they've ever felt. That's why silence is feared. Because people can't read it. They can't measure it. They can't mock it. They can't grab hold of it. Words, they twist them, break them, laugh at them. But silence crawls into their heads, lives there, rent-free, keeps them up at night, wondering what the hell you're thinking. And that's power. You don't need to roar when your silence already makes them choke. Guy, you ever noticed how much noise comes from weak people? The loudest ones in the room? The ones who never shut up about how strong they are, how much they don't care, how much they've moved on. They're screaming because they're empty inside. They're screaming because silence terrifies them. And you're learning to be the opposite. You're learning to sit with silence even when it feels like hell. You're learning to be your own witness. That's rare. That's dangerous. That's the kind of thing that turns a broken man into something unbreakable. Let's be real here. Life doesn't hand out sympathy trophies. You cry out loud about your pain. Most people don't care. Some will pretend to care, sure. But deep down, they're just curious about your wounds. They just want stories to pass around when you're not in the room. You stay silent about your pain. That's when you start healing. Because silence forces you inward. You start talking to yourself, and maybe for the first time you listen. You figure out what you want, not what they want. You figure out who you are when no one's clapping, no one's watching, no one's cheering. That's the hardest battlefield. Silence with yourself. And if you win there, you win everywhere. Think of the betrayals you've been through. The ones who promised forever and left like you meant nothing. The friends who smiled in your face and stabbed you when your back was turned. The people who laughed when you fell. What did you gain by talking to them? Explaining to them, begging them to see your side? Nothing. You wasted breath. But when you stop talking, when you pull back, when you vanish, suddenly they notice. Suddenly they replay every conversation, every choice, every mistake. You don't have to haunt them. Your silence does. You don't need revenge. Silence is revenge. Let me paint you a picture. A man walks out of your life thinking you'll chase. He expects calls, texts, tears, drama, but instead you give him silence. Days go by, weeks, months, nothing. do you know what happens? He starts to wonder. He starts to question himself. He starts to realize he wasn't as important as he thought. And when you return, not begging, not explaining, but standing taller than ever, his world collapses. That's the damage silence brings. It's quiet destruction. It's not fire, it's corrosion. It eats them from the inside until regret is the only thing left. Silence also gives you time. Time to build. Time to grow. Time to focus on yourself while they're busy wondering about you. Every day you stay silent is another brick laid in the foundation of your future. Every hour you don't waste explaining is an hour you put into your body, your mind, your work, your dreams. Imagine the day they finally see you again. Imagine their faces when they realize your silence wasn't weakness. It wasn't fear. It was evolution. That's when silence screams louder than words ever could. Don't rush it. Don't break it. Don't shatter your silence because you feel lonely. That's the trap. They want you desperate. They want you to break your own discipline and hand them back their power. Don't bite your tongue. Clench your fists. Let your silence burn you alive if it has to. But hold it, because one day your silence will become the armor that nothing can pierce. One day your silence will become the storm they never saw coming. The silence, my friend, it isn't some little trick. It's war strategy. And you're at war, whether you like it or not. Not with guns, not with knives, but with people's expectations. Their doubts, their greed, their disrespect. They push, they pull, they prod, hoping you'll slip, hoping you'll shout, hoping you'll give them something to feed on. But when you don't, when you fold your arms, close your mouth, and keep your eyes steady, that's when the game changes. They thought they had control over you, but silence flips the board. They thought they could predict you, but silence makes you a riddle. You become untouchable, not because you're loud, but because they can't figure you out. And people fear what they can't read. You see, silence is the graveyard where their power over you is buried. When you explain yourself, you dig it back up. Put flowers on it, keep it alive. But when you go quiet, you let it rot. That's why silence hurts them more than anything. Betrayal, insults, lies. They expect you to scream, to fight back, to put on a show. But silence denies them that pleasure. Silence is you saying you're not worth my voice anymore. And trust me, nothing bruises the ego more than that. Let's talk about pain. Real pain. The kind you can't put into words because it would sound insane to anyone else. You've been there, haven't you? That hollow chest, that sting when you wake up and remember what they did, that endless replay of why wasn't I enough? You want to scream. You want to tell them everything. You want them to feel it. But they won't. They never will. So why waste your breath? Why give them the luxury of hearing your agony? Pain spoken is pain shared, and they don't deserve to share it. They don't deserve front row seats to your suffering. Keep it locked. Let the silence carry it. Because while words make pain weaker, silence makes it fuel. You know what silence does best? It makes you dangerous. You start spending all that energy you wasted on arguments and turn it into power, into training, into money, into projects, into growth. And the ones who thought you'd collapse without them, they watch from a distance, choking on the silence you left behind. They wonder, what's he doing? Why isn't he calling? Why isn't he broken? And while they wonder, you build. While they gossip, you rise. While they laugh, you prepare. Until one day you step back into the light and they realize silence was just the cocoon. And now you're something else entirely. Listen to me carefully. Silence is not about running away. It's not about hiding. It's about choosing. Choosing what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Choosing to fight battles that matter, not the ones that drain you for nothing. Choosing to let your growth speak instead of your mouth. And that's a choice weak people can't make. They need to be heard, to be seen, to be validated. But you're learning to validate yourself in the quiet. You're learning to stand still in the storm while everyone else gets blown away. That's what makes you rare. That's what makes you dangerous. Remember this, silence is not empty. It's full of power, full of patience, full of answers. The world will try to trick you, tell you that silence means weakness, that silence means defeat. But look at history, look at nature, look at life itself. The deadliest moments are silent. A snake before it strikes, a lion before it leaps, a storm before it tears the sky apart. Silence is the moment before destiny shifts. And right now, you're in that moment. You're in the silence before your explosion. Don't waste it. Don't break it. Let it grow until the whole world shakes when you finally move. Be silent, not because you're weak, but because you're loaded. Not because you're scared, but because you're calculating. Not because you're done, but because you're preparing. Be silent until your silence becomes the story they can't stop telling. And when you finally speak again, let it be the sound of victory, not explanation. You know what silence really is, kid? It's control. Think about it. Every time you open your mouth, you gamble. You're throwing dice into their hands. Maybe they'll understand you. Maybe they'll twist you words. Maybe they'll spit them back in your face. But when you say nothing, when you cross your arms and keep your mouth sealed tight, you win every time. They can't twist what they never heard. They can't use what you never gave, and that's why silence is priceless. It's your last shield in a world that wants to strip you bare. But silence isn't just about others. It's about you. It's about building that inner strength to sit with your own demons without screaming for help. That's the hard part. You think silence is quiet number. Silence is loud. Loud inside your head. Loud with the voices of every betrayal, every insult, every regret. Silence makes you sit in a locked room with your worst fears and dares you to face them. Most people can't do that. That's why they talk so much, drown themselves in noise, fill the air with distractions. But you're learning to sit there in the dark, in the quiet, listening to every ghost, every shadow, every wound, and not break. That's not weakness. That's training. I'll tell you a truth no one wants to hear. The world doesn't respect kindness. The world doesn't respect explanations. The world doesn't respect tears. The world respects silence, results, and revenge that doesn't need to be spoken. You cry to them, they call you soft. You explain yourself, They call you desperate. You stay silent. They call you dangerous. And in that danger, respect is born. Respect doesn't come from noise. It comes from discipline. And discipline is silence. When your heart is begging to scream, that's the war you're fighting right now against yourself. You ever notice the ones who betrayed you? They expect you to beg. They expect you to break. They sit there waiting for your call, waiting for the long messages, waiting for your explanations. And when none of it comes, when weeks go by and your silence doesn't crack, that's when they lose sleep. That's when their laughter fades. They start to ask themselves, was I the one who mattered, or was he always stronger than me? And that question eats them alive. You don't need to put a bullet in their chest. Your silence is the bullet. Your progress is the gun. But don't get me wrong, silence isn't easy. It's going to tear at you, make you restless, make you want to break. You'll feel weak, like you're disappearing. But disappearing is the point. You vanish from their world so you can rebuild in your own. Silence is your cocoon, and inside it, you change. You train, you learn, you sharpen, you rise. Then when you step out again, you're not the same broken man they left. You're something else. Something colder, sharper, harder, and they won't know how to handle it. That's the beauty of silence. It transforms you while confusing them. Think of silence like a weapon that's always loaded. You don't waste bullets on every little insult, every little doubt. You save it for the moment that matters. And when it comes, boom. One move, one return, one success, and it's over. All their laughs, all their gossip, all their arrogance gone in a second. And the silence before that moment. That's what makes the impact unforgettable. So hold it. Hold your silence. Let them choke on their own words while you forge yours into something unshakable. Don't rush to prove yourself. Don't waste breath on those who never cared. Don't break just to feel heard. Sit in the silence. Bleed in it. Grow in it. Because one day your silence will roar louder than all the noise in this world combined. And that roar, that's when they'll know you were never weak. You were just waiting. Silence is discipline, kid. And discipline is pain you choose. Everyone talks about strength like it's something loud. Big speeches, long posts, chest beating. Look at me, I survived. But real strength, it's the quiet grind. The nights where you bite down on your own rage instead of letting it spill out. It's the mornings when you wake up with that weight in your chest. The betrayal still fresh like a knife. And you don't call them, don't text them, don't give them the satisfaction. You carry it, you let it sit there, heavy, burning until it molds you into something colder, sharper. That's discipline, that's silence, and it's cruel. But it's also the only way you become untouchable. Let me put it this way. Life doesn't clap for you when you cry. People don't respect the man who begs for understanding. They don't care about your story. They don't care about your truth. They care about what you become in spite of it. That's why silence is sacred. Because when you shut up, when you stop telling them your pain, you stop giving them power over you. Every explanation is a chain. Every defense is a leash. But silence breaks those chains. Silence is you saying, I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to outlive you, outgrow you, outshine you. You'll notice something if you're strong enough to hold your silence long enough. People start projecting. They start inventing stories about you. He doesn't care. He must be with someone else. He's cold now. And all of that, it's fear. It's their insecurity filling in the blanks, your silence left open. And the more they guess, the more restless they get. That's when you realize silence is not absence. It's presence. It's being there without saying a word and still owning the entire room. The hardest part, it's when you want to break it. When your chest aches to scream, "Why did you do this to me? Why wasn't I enough?" But you can't. Because the moment you break, you lose. And you're not here to lose, are you? You're here to become something else. So let that scream rot in your chest. Let it poison you until you turn that poison into fuel. Because silence teaches you alchemy. How to turn heartbreak into hunger, betrayal into focus, tears into strength. That's the real magic. That's the transformation no one talks about. Think of it like this. You're standing in a burning house. Everyone's yelling, crying, pointing fingers, blaming each other, noise everywhere. But the one who stays silent, he's the one who finds the door. He's the one who survives. That's what silence does. It keeps you clear when chaos tries to drown you. And when you finally walk out while everyone else is choking on smoke, you don't need to say a damn word. Your survival speaks for you. That's what you're training for. The moment your silence becomes the loudest sound in the room. You know what drives people insane? When they hurt you and you don't give them the show they wanted. They expected anger, breakdowns, begging, but you gave them nothing. That nothing is louder than every word you could have said. It haunts them because silence means they don't matter anymore. And when someone realizes they lost their importance in your world, that's when they finally feel the pain they put you through. Silence is karma, slow and merciless. So, here's the rule. Don't break it for anyone. Don't waste it on arguments. Don't hand it to people who don't deserve your voice. Keep it, hold it, guard it. And let them learn the hard way that your silence isn't emptiness. It's judgment. It's the verdict they can't escape. And one day when you finally decide to speak again, your words will hit like thunder because they've been waiting, fearing, wondering all along. That's the power of being silent. That's the weight of being untouchable. You see, kid, silence is the test most people fail. They think strength is in shouting, proving, making noise so the world knows they exist. But noise fades. Noise always fades. Silence, though, silence stays. It lingers. It doesn't need validation. And that's what breaks people. It's not the sound of your voice. It's the absence of it, the absence that forces them to sit with themselves, to face their guilt, their shame, their insecurity. You don't need to punish them. Your silence is the punishment. You don't need to tell them they were wrong. Your silence is the verdict. And when the silence stretches long enough, it becomes unbearable. It eats them alive. Let me give you something real. When someone betrays you, when they spit on the loyalty you gave, your first instinct is to shout, to demand answers, to make them understand the pain they caused. But here's the truth. They already know. They knew when they did it. They knew when they looked you in the eye and still went through with it. You think they forgot? No, they just don't care. And shouting won't make them care. Explaining won't make them care. But silence. Silence forces them to deal with the consequences without your help. Silence is you saying, I know what you did. I know who you are, and I'm not wasting one more breath on you. That's not weakness. That's war. Silence is also protection. Words can betray you. Words can be twisted, replayed, mocked. But silence can't be used against you. That's why the strongest people in the world, those who survive betrayal, heartbreak, failure, they all learn the same lesson. Talk less, act more. Keep your plans close, your emotions closer, and let silence guard the door. Because once you give someone your voice, you give them a weapon. And if they don't love you, they'll use it to stab you. Silence keeps your weapons in your own hands. The irony is, the world thinks silence is weakness. They think if you're quiet, you're broken. But that's exactly what makes it powerful. Because while they're underestimating you, you're building. While they're gossiping, you're grinding. While they're laughing, you're plotting. And one day you'll walk into a room with the results of that silence carved into your body, your face, your success. And they'll realize too late. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was preparation. You weren't defeated, you were becoming. Let's go darker. Silence teaches you the value of loss. When you stop filling the air with, please stay, and I can't lose you, you learn to let go. You learn that losing someone doesn't kill you, it remakes you. And the quieter you become, the more you start to see who was real and who was fake. Because silence exposes everyone. The ones who were only around for your noise, your energy, your constant attention, they'll leave. And the ones who were there for you, they'll sit in the silence with you. That's how you know. Silence cuts out the noise and leaves you with the truth, however ugly it is. And here's the hardest part. Silence doesn't give you shortcuts. It doesn't take away the pain instantly. It makes you sit in it. It makes you choke on it. It makes you live with it until you either break or you grow. And that's why most people can't do it. They run back. They beg. They break their silence because it hurts too much. But not you. You're going to hold it. You're going to let the silence tear you apart and rebuild you from the inside out. Because when you walk out of that battlefield, there won't be anything left that can break you. You'll be untouchable, not because you're the loudest, but because you've learned to master the quiet. Be silent, kid. Be silent when they mock you. Be silent when they leave you. Be silent when the pain feels unbearable. Because every second you stay silent, you're training, you're sharpening, you're becoming. And one day, when you decide to break that silence, not with explanations, but with results, your voice will shake the ground they stand on, and by then it'll be too late for them to stop you. Silence, my friend, is the language of those who've bled enough to understand that words are cheap. You see, the world is full of talkers, people who say they love you, people who swear they'll never leave, People who promise they've got your back. And where are they now? Gone. Scattered like dust in the wind. Their words meant nothing because words are easy. Words cost nothing. But silence costs everything. To stay silent when your chest is on fire, when your soul is screaming, that's sacrifice, that's strength, that's pain turned into discipline. And only those who've tasted betrayal, only those who've been abandoned, only those who've been laughed at in their darkest hours ever learn it. Let me tell you something dark. You're going to want to break your silence. You want to send that message, make that call, write that long explanation, because deep down you still crave to be understood. But here's the truth. They'll never understand. Even if you pour your heart out, even if you explain every detail, even if you cry in front of them, they won't get it. Not because you're bad at explaining, but because they were never meant to get it. They don't have the depth, the loyalty, the soul to feel what you feel. So why waste your breath? Why give them the privilege of your pain dressed in words they'll mock later? Be silent. Let them wonder. Let them choke on questions you'll never answer. That's how you win. Silence is also a mirror. When you stop talking, you force people to face their own actions. They start to hear their own words echoing in the empty space you leave. They replay the last time they saw you, the last things they said, the way they treated you, and slowly regret creeps in. You don't have to lift a finger. Your silence does the work for you. That's why it's so hard. Because silence demands patience. Silence demands you trust the process. Silence demands you bleed quietly until the day comes when they can no longer ignore the weight of what they lost. And trust me, that day always comes. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but it hurts too much. I can't sit in this silence forever. And you're right, it does hurt. It's supposed to hurt. That's the price. But remember this, silence isn't forever. It's not the end. It's the middle, the battlefield, the training ground. The silence you're enduring now is the cocoon, and pain is the pressure that breaks you open into something new. If you can survive the silence, if you can hold it without breaking, then when you finally speak again, your words will carry thunder. They'll crush. They'll silence everyone else without you raising your voice. Isn't it ironic? The very thing that hurts you the most, the silence, becomes the very thing that saves you. Because while you're silent, you're also free. No one can twist your words. No one can manipulate your voice. No one can mock your explanations. Silence is bulletproof. And the ones who thought they had you figured out, they'll choke on the mystery of it. They'll drive themselves insane, trying to guess what you're thinking, what you're doing, who you're becoming, and the truth, you don't owe them an answer. You never did. That's the lesson, kid. Be silent. Not because you're broken, but because you're building. Be silent, not because you're weak, but because you're dangerous. Be silent. Not because they silenced you, but because you chose to starve them of the one thing they wanted most, your reaction. And when the time comes, when your silence has forged you into something unrecognizable, you'll step into the world again and realize you don't even need revenge. Your existence will be revenge enough. Your silence will have already done the killing. So hold it. Hold your silence until it burns, until it shapes you, until it turns you into the storm they never saw coming. Don't let it break you. Let it make you. Because silence is not the absence of strength. It is the birthplace of it. The thing about silence, kid, is that it's the most misunderstood weapon in the world. People mistake it for weakness, for surrender, for fear. They think if you're not yelling, if you're not defending yourself, if you're not begging to be understood, you've lost. That's their mistake. That's the trap they fall into. Because silence doesn't mean you've lost. It means you've decided the fight isn't worth your breath. It means you've chosen a battlefield they can't reach. And that battlefield, it's inside yourself. That's where wars are really won. Not in screaming matches or explanations, but in the quiet, brutal discipline of holding back when everything inside you wants to break. You ever sit in a room after someone's left you, after someone's betrayed you, and the silence feels like it's screaming louder than any words ever could? That's the silence I'm talking about. That's the silence that tests you, molds you, strips you down to nothing, and dares you to rebuild. And it's cruel. It will chew you up, spit you out, make you think you're losing your mind. But if you endure it, if you refuse to break, that silence becomes your shield, your armor, your proof that nothing, not betrayal, not heartbreak, not failure, can destroy you unless you give it permission. And you won't. You know why silence is powerful? Because it puts the weight back on them. When you talk, when you explain, when you scream, you carry the weight. But when you go silent, you hand it over. You make them wonder. You make them guess. You make them question, why isn't he calling? Why isn't he fighting back? Why isn't he broken? And the longer you stay silent, the heavier that weight gets. They wanted your reaction to feed their ego, to prove you still cared, to prove you were still theirs to control. And your silence denies them. It starves them. It drives them insane. That's justice. That's revenge without lifting a finger. But let's not romanticize it too much. Silence isn't some cozy little trick. It's hell. It's nights staring at the ceiling with your jaw clenched so hard it hurts. It's mornings where you reach for the phone and then stop yourself, fingers shaking, because you know one word, one message would ruin everything you've built. It's days where the weight of not speaking feels like it's killing you. That's the cost. And most people aren't built for it. They break, they give in, they chase. And in doing so, they hand back their power. But you're not going to break. You're going to hold. Because what comes after the silence is worth every ounce of pain it costs you. Silence is transformation. It's the seed buried in dirt, unseen, forgotten. Everyone thinks it's dead. But beneath the soil, in the silence, it's building roots. It's gathering strength. It's preparing. And then one day, it breaks through the ground, unstoppable. That's you. They'll think your silence means you're finished. They'll laugh. They'll move on. They'll underestimate you. But when you return, when your silence finally blossoms into results, success, strength, peace, they won't know what hit them. And by then, it's too late. Let me give you the harshest truth of all. No one is coming to save you. No one's going to sit down and say, "Hey, I finally understand your pain." They won't. They never will. The only one who can understand it, carry it, and use it is you. That's why silence is sacred. It's not just shutting the world out. It's shutting yourself in. It's forcing yourself to sit with the demons until you either collapse or conquer them. And if you conquer them, there's nothing left in this world that can touch you. That's why the strong are always quiet, because they've fought wars in their own heads that would have destroyed anyone else. So when they look at you and say, "Why don't you talk? Why don't you explain?" Smile. Because you know the truth. You know silence isn't empty. It's full of discipline, full of patience, full of power. Silence is you reloading. Silence is you healing. Silence is you preparing for the day when your presence will be enough to shut every mouth that ever doubted you. Be silent, kid, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Because that silence is turning you into someone they'll never be able to break again. And when you finally speak, it won't be explanations. It'll be the sound of victory. Silence is the graveyard of weak men and the birthplace of strong ones. That's what nobody tells you. They'll tell you, speak your truth. Let it out. Free yourself. But freeing yourself with words is just another kind of prison. Because the moment you spill it all, the world owns it. They'll twist it, mock it, and replay it until your pain isn't yours anymore. It's their entertainment. But silence keeps it in your chest, locked, burning, forging. It makes you your own witness, your own judge, your own executioner. And that's what terrifies people about a silent man. He doesn't need their validation, their understanding, or their pity. He carries his own cross, and he doesn't ask for applause. Picture this. Someone betrays you. They expect fireworks, screaming, crying, chasing. They expect drama because that's what feeds them. That's what justifies their betrayal. But when you don't give it, when you go silent, when you vanish into your own shadows, they're left empty-handed. Their betrayal feels hollow. Their ego starves, and soon they start to wonder if they ever mattered at all. That's the silent kill, my friend. No bullets, no blades. Just absence, just a void that swallows them whole. Because silence is louder than any revenge. But don't fool yourself. Silence isn't some easy road. It's heavy. It's waking up at 300 a.m. with 1,000 unsaid words clawing at your throat. It's carrying heartbreak like a weight strapped to your chest day after day, and refusing to unload it in front of people who don't deserve to see it. That's pain. That's the cost. And most can't pay it. They fold, they break their silence, they hand their power away just to feel a little lighter for a moment. But you're not most people. You're gonna sit in that pain until it becomes part of you. Until you wear it like armor. Until the silence doesn't crush you anymore. It fuels you. Let me tell you what silence really gives you. Clarity. When you stop wasting energy explaining, you start seeing things as they are. You realize who cared only when you were loud. You realize who disappears when you stop feeding them attention. Silence filters your life like fire filters gold. It burns away the cheap, the fake, the temporary. What remains, that's real. That's unshakable. That's what you can build on. And everything else, let it burn. You think silence makes you invisible, but the truth, it makes you unforgettable. People don't remember the guy who begged, who argued, who shouted. That's noise. And noise fades. They remember the one who walked away without a word. They remember the weight of what was unsaid. They remember the ghost of your silence long after your presence is gone. That's legacy. That's fear. That's respect. And that's what you're building now, in the quiet, in the loneliness, in the nights where you feel like you'll explode if you don't speak. You're carving a memory into their minds without saying a thing. Let's get real. You want them to regret it, don't you? You want them to feel the same pain they made you feel. You want them to lie awake, wondering if they threw away something irreplaceable. And they will, but not if you chase, not if you explain, not if you beg. They'll only regret it if you disappear. If you rise in silence, if you let them see one day without warning that you became everything they never believed you could. Silence is the seed of regret. Plant it deep, water it with patience, and watch it grow inside their chest until it strangles them. But here's the twist. You're not really doing it for them. You're doing it for you. Because silence is healing. Silence is you learning to stop needing their approval. Silence is you cutting off the noise of the world so you can hear your own soul again. And once you hear it, once you start living by it, you'll never chase anyone again. You'll never beg again. You'll never break again. Because silence doesn't just protect you from them. It frees you from yourself. So let them talk. Let them gossip. Let them paint their little stories about you. Stay silent because silence means you don't play by their rules anymore. You've built your own. And when the day comes where you finally break that silence, it won't be for them. It'll be for you. And your voice, sharpened by years of silence, will cut through everything. That's the power they'll never understand until it's too late. Silence, kid. It's the most brutal teacher you'll ever have. And the lessons, they cut deeper than any knife. Silence teaches you patience when you're shaking with rage. It teaches you restraint when your heart is begging to break. It teaches you how to carry pain without collapsing. And it teaches you this. Nobody's coming to rescue you. Nobody's showing up to wipe your tears or clap for your effort. The world doesn't care about your explanations. They only care about results. And silence, silence is the furnace where results are forged. While they waste time talking, you spend time building. While they laugh in groups, you sharpen in the dark. And when the silence ends, you'll stand there as proof that noise is temporary, but silence creates permanence. You ever notice how silence feels like death sometimes? Like you're buried alive, screaming inside, but nobody hears you. That's because silence strips you down. It rips away the fake comfort of being heard, the illusion that someone out there understands. It leaves you face to face with yourself, raw, broken, and alone. And if you survive that, if you survive being your own only witness, your own only savior, then nothing else can break you. Not betrayal, not heartbreak, not loss, because you've already faced the worst. Silence with your own demons, and you didn't die. You walked out stronger. That's why silence is feared. Because a silent man is a man who's fought battles no one else can see. A silent man has scars you'll never hear about. A silent man is unpredictable. He could be broken, or he could be planning his rise. And that mystery eats people alive. They don't know what's going on behind your eyes. They don't know if you're suffering or preparing. And that uncertainty is power. Because when people can't read you, they can't control you. They can't manipulate what they can't understand. Let me tell you something about betrayal. The ones who hurt you, they expect to remain the center of your story. Even when they leave, they want you talking about them, thinking about them, explaining yourself because of them. They want to live rent-free in your head. But silence evicts them. Silence tells them you're not worth the noise anymore. And nothing destroys an ego faster than realizing you're no longer important enough to provoke a reaction. That's why silence is the sharpest revenge. You stop feeding their fire and you let them burn in their own ashes. But here's the thing. Silence is also about redirection. The energy you'd waste on explanations you put into yourself. Every second you don't spend chasing them, you spend chasing your goals. Every hour you don't spend arguing, you spend building. And slowly, day by day, your silence turns into muscle, into money, into growth, into peace. And one day, when they finally see you again, they won't recognize you. They'll realize your silence wasn't surrender. It was transformation. That's the sweetest revenge. Not words, not anger, but existence. A stronger existence than they ever thought possible. Don't break your silence for temporary relief. That's the trap. You think if you just send one message, you'll feel better. You think if you just explain, they'll finally understand, but they won't, and you'll regret it the second you hit send. Hold the silence. Hold it like a blade pressed to your chest. Painful, but necessary. Because every time you hold it, you're training yourself. You're mastering yourself. You're teaching your soul that you don't need anyone to hear your pain for it to be real. It's real. You know it. That's enough. Silence is the bridge between who you were and who you're becoming. Who you were was loud, explaining, begging, breaking. Who you're becoming, he doesn't need to be understood. He doesn't need to be liked. He doesn't need to be heard. He walks into a room and his silence does the talking. That's the man silence is building inside you right now. And when he's ready, when the silence has finished its work, he won't even need to say a word to prove himself. His presence will be the proof. And that's the kind of man they'll regret ever underestimating. So be silent. Bleed in silence. Grow in silence. Rise in silence. Let the pain carve you. Let the loneliness mold you. Let the quiet forge you. Because one day your silence will become the loudest roar the world has ever heard. Silence, kid, is like a coffin. You lie in it, still cold, feeling like the world has already buried you. And that's exactly why it's so powerful. Because in that coffin, in that silence, you realize who you really are. You realize no one's coming to pull you out. No one's reaching down to save you. And when that truth hits, it either kills you or it wakes you the hell up. Most people, they die in that silence. They run back to noise, to begging, to fake smiles and fake love because silence is too heavy. But the rare ones, the dangerous ones, they stay. They lie in that coffin until they're comfortable with death itself. And when they rise, nothing scares them anymore. That's what you're learning. Silence isn't about shutting others out. It's about shutting yourself in, forcing yourself to face everything you've been running from. The betrayals, the failures, the voices in your head telling you you're not enough. You hear it all in silence, and it hurts like hell. It feels like your chest is going to cave in. But if you endure it, if you refuse to break, you walk out of that silence unshakable. Because once you've been alone with your demons and survived, the world can't touch you. You ever notice how people hate silence? Put them in a quiet room for 5 minutes, and they panic. They reach for their phones. They start talking nonsense. They create noise just to avoid being alone with themselves. That's weakness. That's fear. Because silence is a mirror. And most people are terrified of their reflection. But you're learning to stare at it. You're learning to stand in the quiet with every scar, every regret, every failure staring back, and you don't flinch. That's why silence is rare. That's why it's powerful, because only the strong can carry it without breaking. And here's the truth about the people who left you, who disrespected you, who doubted you. They expected you to fill the silence with noise. They expected calls, texts, explanations, drama. They wanted proof that they still mattered, that they still controlled your mind. But when you went silent, you broke their script. You flipped the game. Suddenly, they're the ones wondering, waiting, choking on questions with no answers. Silence steals their power. Silence makes them restless. Silence makes them regret. And that's sweeter than any argument you could have had. But don't think silence is only about revenge. It's about growth. Every second you stay silent, you're saving energy. Energy you'd waste on people who don't care. You invest in yourself. Every word you don't speak becomes a brick in the foundation of your future. Every conversation you don't have with someone unworthy becomes time you spend building yourself into something greater. That's the secret. Silence isn't just the absence of noise, it's the presence of focus. And that focus, it'll take you places no amount of arguing ever could. I know it hurts. I know you feel like exploding sometimes, like the silence is killing you from the inside. But it's not killing you. It's rebuilding you. It's tearing down the weak parts, the needed parts, the parts that thought love meant begging and loyalty meant explaining. It's sculpting you into someone who doesn't need to be understood to be strong. Someone who doesn't need to be heard to exist. Someone who walks into a room and commands respect without opening his mouth. That's the man silence is shaping inside you. Think of the storm. Before it tears the sky apart, before it floods the earth, there's silence. That heavy, suffocating silence where everything holds its breath. That's where you are now. The silence before your storm. And when it breaks, when you finally release everything you've been building in the quiet, the world won't know what hit it. The people who doubted you, who laughed at you, who thought you were finished, they'll drown in the very silence they mocked. That's the destiny of a man who chooses silence over noise. So hold it. Hold your silence until it hurts, until it burns, until it feels like you can't take another second. Because that's when it's working. That's when it's changing you. That's when it's turning your pain into power. And one day, when you decide to speak again, not to explain, not to beg, but to declare, you'll realize your silence already did the damage. Your silence already won the war.